Well, I'm finally back to making videos, and I wanted to make the return video very special. Today, we will uncover the secrets of the Gate of the Setting Sun. Many fellow explorers watching this video will know that the Gate of the Setting Sun, located over in the Dread Wastes, contain one of the most famous out-of-bounds discoveries in all of World of Warcraft, the famous Mantis text. Before I show you how to reach this bizarre text, and the even stranger mysteries, in my opinion, of the Gate of the Setting Sun, I am proud to announce that we have our very first sponsor of the channel, HelloFresh. Whether you're trying to save a bit of money, eat better food, or stress about meal planning less, HelloFresh is there to help you do all three. Join America's #1 meal kit today and say hello to your most delicious year yet with fresh ingredients and chef-crafted recipes at a price that you'll like, delivered right to your door. Ditch the meal planning blues and dive into HelloFresh's biggest menu yet with more than 45 recipes and even more market items that support your eating habits. In addition, when you sign up for HelloFresh, you will get a free dessert for life. You will get one free dessert item per box while your subscription is active. Make restaurant quality meals at home, topped off with a decadent sweet treat. I don't know about you, but I'm personally a sweet tooth, and there's nothing better than a free sweet treat after a delicious meal, and HelloFresh could not agree more. Just to reiterate, they're giving all of their new subscribers free dessert for life. That means, from here on out, every time you order with HelloFresh, you'll enjoy a totally free dessert on the house with every single delivery. As someone who has gone through major periods of my life with basically zero time and zero experience for cooking, HelloFresh can pick up where time and cooking skills are not readily available. If you would like to sign up, please use the link and code in the description of this video, and you will receive 10 free meals and a dessert for life while your subscription is active. Let's get back to the video. To perform this glitch, it's actually one of the easiest glitches I've ever performed on this channel. In fact, I had been here a long time ago with my friend Gallifrey, who showed me how to break out of bounds, but that was many months ago and I had forgotten all about that. When walking back through this instance for this video, the very first time I tried to break out of bounds, I was successful. And honestly, I couldn't even remember how I had done it the last time. All you need to do is defeat the very first boss, then walk all the way to the very end of the wall, past the burning flames, and you'll run into the end of the instance. Jump on the small ledge, use Metamorphosis or some other jumping move, just past this invisible wall, but still targeting this little lip, and voila, there, you're out of bounds. I'm sure there are many other ways to get out of bounds in this instance. As a matter of fact, I think you can actually get over to where you fight the final enemy, but we're not gonna talk about that yet. This was just the way that I had found, and this way will get you to most of the instance anyway. That's really about it for breaking out of bounds in the Gate of the Setting Sun. The very first location we will head to is the Mantis text itself. Sometimes I like to put the most important part of the exploration at the front, sometimes I like to put it in the middle. Here, you're going to learn that this Mantis text actually is not the most important part of this exploration. We'll get to that. Note that we are actually already outside of the lines of the map too. I could not remember exactly where this text was at first, so I just started walking along the wall as far as I could. This was a great idea because as I got closer to Kunlai Summit, I knew I was close. I quickly looked inside this tower, which was just a glitched mess, but just past the tower, we have come across the very first Mantis text. And you probably noticed the text is quite strange. Why is it out there, and why is it talking about Mantis? Mantis shrimp? Like I know that in the Dread Wastes and Kunlai Summit, there are mantid, but there's no mantis. Mantis shrimp are a thing, and they are found through fishing. This is just weird that someone put mantis here. Like, I guess they just weren't thinking and they just quickly typed in, or, painted mantis instead of mantid. I don't know. But anyway, that's the end of the video. See you guys next time. Of course not. Of course, we're going to explore this entire Out of Bounds area. Who do you think I am? Exploring the edges of a map can be very tedious, but it has been very rewarding in the past. I explored the perimeter of this giant area of Kunlai. At the end of the wall on the top of this cliff, we can see that a lot of the Dread Wastes is here. Kunlai Summit is also here, of course, and so is a giant chasm with an entire separate area on it. Now this area on the other side can be explored, and it has some very interesting secrets to be unveiled. More on this later on in the video. The first objective of exploring the perimeter was to reach the Mantis text and then stick to the giant wall and the mountains. It is possible to walk over the Mantis text, which is incredibly trippy. Walking along this mountain range, I came to a very neat opening to the Vale of Eternal Blossoms, and you'll see that the statues are indeed intact. More on this later again. I'm just looking at the perimeter, we'll get to that in a minute. I still wanted to finish exploring this area first before I continued to the Vale of Eternal Blossoms, which is one of my favorite zones in all of World of Warcraft. The entryway where the gate should be is actually really interesting. Where the gate should be into the Vale is also really strange. There should be a gate here, but there's not. There are also some strange farms around. These are not really unexpected, but without all the detail, they just look really deliberate and also out of place at the exact same time. Peering over the edge did not show anything of interest, other than that this map is completely massive. Heading back towards the wall and then climbing over these mountains led me back into the Dread Wastes, and I continued to explore the edge of the map. I saw a lit torch on this path, but otherwise, the only really interesting thing in this area were the incredibly blue cliffs. I have no idea why these walls are so blue, but they are some of the most blue textures I've ever seen in this game. Now, I do think that probably it's something to do with some contrast or something like that, but I don't really know. I'm not a developer, I'm not an artist. This log here was very well placed on the edge, and you can even walk out to peer into the abyss. Other than the walls being so blue and that log we just looked at, there wasn't much else to note about this part of the exploration. I did decide to jump down into the chasm after some thought, and I went ahead and explored most of this white area just to get it out of the way. If you're new to the channel or you're new to WoW exploration, you may not know, but sometimes developers will actually leave assets or all kinds of interesting test textures down in these areas. I found so many different things throughout my exploration on this channel. Sadly, none of these developer artifacts I just mentioned could be found this time. If you have explored this lower area in more detail, please reach out to me on my Discord and let me know if you discovered anything of value. In my next exploration of the area, I moved on to looking through this glitched version of the Dread Wastes. I explored this little Yungle village. I think it's a Yungle village, I'm not entirely sure. I know that this area exists on the regular Dread Waste, but it's always interesting to see little campfires and torches and other supplies just sitting around with absolutely no one to attend to them. Except maybe the Mantis folk are over here, I don't know. I moved away from the village, and there are quite a few bizarre textures near the edge of the cliff. We will see more weird textures as we move on. We can explore every tree that we see here in the Dread Waste. I think. There might be a couple we can't, but I try to explore every one of them. There's another abandoned camp here, and beyond the camp is one of the massive amber trees. The eclipse detection is pretty much gone here, so we can look inside of the trees and discover how they look from beneath. Then, beyond the first tree, I was searching for some strange textures, and the weirdest texture I discovered was this incredibly stretched out path that doesn't really seem to make any sense. I ended up having to Demon Hunter wall jump to the top due to how steep the path is. You can't just normally walk up it. Following the path as far as I could, I stumbled upon the next giant tree. This one had some clip detection, but it seemed like the entire branches were missing from it. On the other side of the tree, there's some amber dripping, and the ambient noise is still being played as well. Following the path away from the amber camp, there's a random floating piece of moss. Nothing crazy, but it's just weird. I looked over the edge here and I saw that there were some tree roots underneath the map. There's nothing crazy here, but I guess it's kind of interesting. Past that little area, we uncover another bizarre discovery. This weird purple and black amalgamation of textures. The area is completely disheveled. The weird buildings here have pearly white textures with hardly any detail. There are also lampposts scattered around in weird places in comparison to the location of the glitched textures. This observation gives a weird insight to how the developers made all of the Sha textures look so intricate. A lone stone in all of this texture can be seen here, and it looks very out of place. I jumped up to this building and decided to move on after viewing how the tree moved outward past the invisible boundary. The textures seemingly melded into the glitched mountains, leading to a strange and unexpected view. I love seeing this stuff. It's super interesting. Afterwards, I found a path and I decided to follow it. The path led me to another giant tree, which had some clip detection, but not throughout the entire structure, thankfully. On the other side of the tree, there was a weird pit-looking area, which I think might actually be is it Clazives? Clazives? I think it is. On the northern portion of this ring was a large gap in the map. I always find it so interesting that some maps have entire structures removed, but they leave in entire sections or zones, like the Vale of Eternal Blossoms in this case, which is mostly not even visible from the instance. So it's like, why did they include that? I don't know, but it is interesting to explore. It is possible that this tunnel here specifically led to the Paragon Vault, but I'm not completely sure about that. The tree above the hole had clip detection, unfortunately, so I couldn't really explore that. The next area I explored was the spider area of the map. The Terrace of Girthon, I think it's called. There really wasn't much here, but beyond the spider area was more interesting. Before we get to that, I located some areas with some bones that popped into view, and I was able to obtain a very good view of the wall from underneath, which is something that's interesting to see from underneath the map. Now, beyond the spider part of the map, we can see the Mantid are trying to attack, or Mantis I should say, are trying to attack the Gate of the Setting Sun. I attempted to explore the attack force, but unfortunately, I perished. I went back to try to get a better look at the Mantid, and as I went back out of bounds, I noticed that this Pandarian was just chilling in the fire. What a strange decision to make. Flying in the direction of the Mantid immediately resulted in another death. I used a Tonk Toy to path out the death barrier, but that was not very successful. Neither was my next attempt. I tried to be a bit more cautious in my next attempt by giving up on this part of the exploration. Instead, I went to explore the Heart of Fear Scar. I don't really know what to call this place. It's one of those like subzones that like doesn't have a name on the map, but you know, it's like when you're in the zone, it actually does have a name, but I don't remember the name at the moment. There's some really weird textures like we saw before, but this time they're just kind of sitting in the middle of nowhere. Other than the tree Kaparik, I think that's how you pronounce it, I was not able to complete this exploration of this area. I was not able to look at the Mantid army. Maybe I'll come back here with a shaman later and put it in a short, or maybe a part 2 of this video if there's enough things to go back to. Well, I think that about wraps up the Dreadwaste. Now let's head into the Vale of Eternal Blossoms. I don't know about anybody else watching this video, but seeing the Vale of Eternal Blossoms for the very first time was absolutely one of the best pieces of World of Warcraft since Wrath of Lich King. I have very fond memories of Pandaria. Even to this day, I have always looked fondly at the zone until Garrosh decided to screw everything up. Let's see how the zone looks in this out of bounds area. The first little section of the map I explored was this little cave. It was neat, but there's nothing too out of the ordinary here. I then continued down these beautiful steps that are all paved, and there it is. The twin monolith statues. When these were destroyed in the game, I genuinely was sad, especially since it became a permanent destruction. Over to the north, we have where the gate to Kunlai Summit should be, the area that we saw from earlier. I also checked out how the lake looked without any water in it, and of course I got a good look at these statues. On the northern side of the area, the Shrine of the Two Moons, I also checked the area that the Mogushan Palace should be. It's a bit weird that it's all green since the rest of the entire area is golden. Finally, I checked the area where the Shrine of the Seven Stars should be. Again, it's just a small green area. Oh, there's also this very strange blip that happened. I have absolutely no idea why this happened, but it never happened again during the rest of the exploration, so I don't know what this was. After an amazing adventure, I went back underneath these amazing statues, and I explored what I believe to be Two Shin Burial Ground or Mistfall Village. There was a really cool area with waterfalls rushing into nothing, and this was definitely a cool effect. Above the village showed the source of the waterfalls, which was a pool of absolutely nothing. Beyond the mountains, I got a glimpse of the Valley of the Four Winds and actually decided to explore that zone for a little bit. The Valley of the Four Winds is another one of my favorite places in WoW, but definitely in Pandaria. Second to the original Vale, of course. The terrace here was devoid of all hosen structures, and going down from the terrace led to a hole in the map, the first of many in this area. I then went over to explore the Heartland. The Heartland is normally filled with dozens of farms and springs and all kinds of farmhouses. In this version, it's basically a bunch of weirdly colored patches of land with holes where every farmhouse should be. This was a strange discovery, as I feel like most of the houses that are removed in out-of-bounds areas don't really usually leave holes in the map, so I don't know why all of these did. It's possible that these were the holes from the rabbit things, I don't remember what they're called, but I'm not really sure. A piece of the pools of purity is here as well, but it's just an emptied lake, as most lakes are in out-of-bounds areas. I followed this path for a short time, and I decided to finish looking at the rest of the lower part of the map. I found nothing down here. Now, let's head back and look at those mountains that we saw in the distance before. There are some very interesting discoveries to be shown. There are a few different ways to make it across this chasm, at least there used to be. I don't know if there still are. In a video by TheWizardTrokair from 11 years ago, Trokair did this. Now, I don't know if this is even doable anymore, as Trokair did eventually use a Goblin Glider, but what's more interesting is that some of the textures are completely different than they are today. Instead of the weird green color, this area is now blue. Otherwise, there do not seem to be any other changes to the area. I explored this area before I saw Trokair's video, but I recommend checking out that video if you do get a chance. I explored this weird area quite thoroughly. The first notable discovery is that the strange blue texture I mentioned and how the mountains are missing texture. I'm not sure what this area could have been made for, but as far as I'm aware, it looks nothing like Kunlai Summit. Maybe it's like an alpha version of Kunlai Summit, which would be really cool. Let me know if you have any ideas what this place could have been, or if you just straight up know. Beyond the blue texture, there's an off-putting glowing light similar to the ones near the Mantis text, and beyond that light we can see the steps leading downwards. There's more weird red lighting effects as well. I came across this pathway and I decided to follow it, hoping to see some kind of NPC or something like that. There didn't seem to be much along the path itself, other than a couple of those red lighted areas as I mentioned before. I continued down the paths until they ended though, just to be thorough. While following this longer path, I discovered something very peculiar. Another Mantis text. Why is this here in the middle of an area that you cannot reach and would never be able to see? Why do the developers even have this over here? Why is the type of Mantis repeated? What a strange, bizarre discovery, and I'm very glad that I found this. Directly on the other side of the path is yet another Mantis text, so that makes 3 Mantis texts. I only knew of the one, I did not know about these 2. I could hardly believe that there are 3 of these. The original one made sense to a degree other than the typo, but these 2 don't make any sense at all. And even though the first one made sense, I've never seen a text like this in an out-of-bounds area, except for I did find a smiley face in a previous video. If I could find that little tiny smiley face, I'll put a clip of that here. I headed over to these darker mountains, and this one led to one of the strangest discoveries I've ever seen. A completely random orc hut in a completely random out-of-bounds area. It changes the music when you enter it, but it does not change the location. There are plenty of details within this little building. Well, other than looking around the area just a bit more and finding more of these red lit areas, I did not see anything else that was noteworthy. That leads me to the end of today's exploration. Actually this time. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, and if you want to check out HelloFresh, check out the description for my link and sponsor code, and you'll get a free dessert for life. Before we go, a huge shout out to all the amazing patrons who have supported me in my small leave of absence during the training at my new job, and I really appreciate the support, even though I haven't been making videos. Patreon members are being shown on the screen now. Thanks again for watching.